Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the FUNimation dub of episode 86 of Dragon Ball Super. We begin this episode at Kami's lookout, where we see Dende place his hand onto the lookout and he tells the lookout to head south. So the lookout is now mobile and it's on its way towards the direction of the island that Android 17 is currently located on. On their way to the island, Dende assures Goku that Goku won't have to worry about Android 17 trying to eliminate him, which was the case back in Dragon Ball Z's Android Saga and Cell Saga. Dende mentions that besides becoming a park ranger, Android 17 has also started a family, and even though Android 17 is no longer antagonistic, he has become much more powerful compared to back in Dragon Ball Z. Mr. Popo adds that Goku hasn't really been paying attention to what's been going on Earth, since Goku's current attention has been focusing on the divine beings and the other universes. Dende also mentions that there's a young boy in a nearby village with great potential that even this boy is unaware of right now. Dende thinks that it would be a good idea for Goku to train this boy when the boy becomes older in a few years. Goku isn't too sure at first, though, because Goku admits that he doesn't see himself, Goku admits he doesn't think of himself as being good at training others, but he changes his mind once Dende clarifies that the boy he's talking about is the good human reincarnation of Kid Buu, Oob. Goku admits that he's been expecting Kid Buu's reincarnation for some time now, since he did request for the reincarnation to happen. But right now they have to concentrate on the Tournament of Power, or else Goku might not get the chance to cross paths with Oob. Eventually, the lookout arrives just above the island that Android 17 is currently located on, so Dende stops the lookout. Goku thanks Dende for his help before he flies down towards the island, and Dende wishes Goku luck not just in finishing the recruitment for the Universe 7 team, but also winning the Tournament of Power. Once he arrives at the island, Goku wonders how he's going to find Android 17 on such a large island, because Goku is unable to sense Android 17's energy signature. But then he notices some large explosions happening nearby and figures that's probably his best bet at finding Android 17. Sure enough, Goku does see Android 17 knocking out an army of poachers with relative ease. And it's after Android 17 knocks out the poachers when Goku goes up to Android 17 and greets Android 17. He admits that he could tell Android 17 is Android 17 because he shares the same eyes as his twin sister, Android 18. Goku also properly introduces himself, but Android 17 admits that he already knew who Goku was when he heard Goku talk. He recognizes Goku's voice even though he never actually met Goku before this very moment. Suddenly, more poachers arrive, and Goku agrees to help Android 17 out. Android 17 makes a point to tell Goku to be careful with the animals nearby and to not kill the poachers. So together, the duo succeed in defeating the poachers, and the humiliated poachers retreat from the island. Now that the poachers are gone, Android 17 proceeds to give Goku a tour of the island, and Android 17 admits to Goku that more poachers continue to come no matter how many times he stops previous poachers, and this is because most, if not all of the poachers, are interested in acquiring the horns of a beast known as the Minotaurus. Android 17 even goes as far as to show Goku what the Minotaurus looks like. The best way I can think to describe the Minotaurus is that it looks like a purple buffalo, essentially. And Android 17 adds that protecting the Minotaurus is probably his biggest responsibility for being the park ranger of this island. When the Minotaurus notices Goku, it begins to charge at him, and Android 17 has to remind Goku not to fight the beast, but rather fly out of the way. Once they're in the air, safe from the Minotaurus' range, Android 17 admits that the Minotaurus wasn't so antagonistic originally. It became more antagonistic thanks to the misdeeds of poachers. He even adds that the Minotaurus that they're looking at right now could very well be the last one in existence. After the Minotaurus walks off to a different part of the island, Goku and Android 17 fly back down to the ground. And Android 17 admits that he didn't expect to see Goku right now. Goku admits that Goku admits that a few hours ago he didn't even realize that he would be crossing paths with Android 17 either. This causes Android 17 to reflect on how back in the Android saga and the Cell saga, he, along with Android 18 and Android 16, tried to search for Goku during those sagas, but the search was interrupted when Cell made his presence known, and Cell absorbed Android 17 to achieve his semi-perfect form. Goku admits that because they never crossed paths before this very moment, he doesn't know the full extent of Android 17's current power, so he requests to have a sparring match with Android 17 so that he can test Android 17's power. He also answers Android 17's question about why by saying that he's looking for strong allies for something important. So Goku transforms into the Super Saiyan 1 form to begin his spar with Android 17. The two spar at a distance that's safe enough so that the island won't have to worry about it. Or yes, they're sparring at a distance that won't cause any damage to the island. So they begin to spar, and Android 17 does make a point to mention that he's been training along with watching over the island after Goku compliments Android 17's current power level. Goku then proceeds to transform into Super Saiyan Blue, and the spar continues with both Goku and Android 17 showing off more of their power than they did beforehand. They both admit that they were holding back. Eventually, though, Android 17 thinks that it's probably a good idea to end the sparring match now because he's worried that even at the distance that they're at right now, they might still accidentally cause some damage to the island. And the two of them also admit that they were still holding back. So later on, the sun has set now. So Goku and Android 17 are sitting by a campfire and they're drinking some beverages. Android 17 explains that he became a park ranger and met his wife sometime after he was brought back to life by the Dragon Balls when Shenron was summoned after the Cell games. Goku admits that he's interested in meeting Android 17's wife and kids, but Android 17 admits that he actually works away from home, mostly because he doesn't want to put his family in danger with the poachers that constantly invade the island. So Android 17 decides to show Goku a picture of his family on his phone. However, we, the viewers, do not get to see the picture. But Goku makes a comment that Android 17 has 3 kids. Android 17 mentions that two of the kids are adopted, while one of them is the biological offspring of his wife and himself. Android 17 then inquires Goku about why Goku has come to see him right now. He figures that there must be a reason besides Goku just wanting to get to know Android 17 some more. So Goku begins to explain the Tournament of Power to Android 17. Meanwhile, at Capsule Corporation, we see Shin, Old Kai, Beerus, and Whis are all sitting out on the balcony. Beerus in particular is enjoying more of Earth's food and getting some sleep because Beerus admits that if Universe 7 loses the Tournament of Power, then he may not be able to enjoy these luxuries anymore. So Beerus is trying to make the most out of what could be the last few days of existence. Back on the island, Goku has finished his explanation about the Tournament of Power to Android 17, but Android 17 declines the invitation. Goku brings up the lie that he came up with for Krillin and Android 18. He brings up the lie about each member of the winning team receiving 10 million Zeni, but Android 17 says that he doesn't need to worry about money because his salary for his duties as a park ranger is quite impressive, actually. Android 17 also makes a point to say that he can't risk leaving the island even for a short amount of time because of the risk of poachers invading the island while he's not there. So Goku offers to have Goten and Trunks watch over the island while the Tournament of Power is going on. Goku also clarifies for Android 17 that Goten is Goku's youngest son. Android 17 says that there's more to watching the island than simply strength. So Goku, in a moment of desperation, though, mentions that everyone's fate lies in winning the Tournament of Power, and this catches Android 17's attention. Android 17 mentions that it seems to be expected that Goku was not telling him the whole story because he figures that Goku wouldn't go to such great lengths to recruit him for a tournament if this was just a fun tournament with no high stakes involved. So Goku admits that Gohan had told him not to tell anyone else about the stakes for losing the Tournament of Power, but because he has no other choice, Goku proceeds to tell Android 17 that the participating universes that lose the Tournament of Power will be the participating universes that lose the Tournament of Power will be erased from existence. Despite now being aware of what's on the line for losing the Tournament of Power, Android 17 still declines the invitation. He claims he doesn't care about being erased from existence if it means everyone in the universe suffers that fate. Meanwhile, out in space, we see a space vehicle arriving a space vehicle arrives just outside of Earth's orbit, and we see that this vehicle is filled with alien poachers. They seem to be very interested in stealing the Minotaurus in particular. Then we head to the Null Realm, where we see the Tournament of Powers arena is still being constructed slowly but steadily. And that is how we end this episode. So yes, this episode marks the big return of Android 17. His last major role was in Dragon Ball Z's Android Saga and Cell Saga, although he did have a cameo in the Buu Saga where he helped to donate energy for the Super Spirit Bomb against Kid Buu. And, well, I guess production-wise, he was also in Dragon Ball GT, the Super 17 Saga, although many fans don't really like to talk about the Super 17 Saga. And even then, chronologically speaking, Super would occur before GT in terms of chronology. So chronologically speaking, yes, this would be the first time where Goku and Android 17 actually crossed paths with one another. And I thought it was pretty cool how Goku and Android 17 got along with each other pretty well when they first met. Oh, that's right. Speaking of references to chronology, yes, Oob is mentioned once again. Oob was mentioned back in the Champa Saga too. Yes, Goku brought up Oob during the Champa Saga, but said that Oob was still too young to participate in the Tournament of Destroyers. So yes, Oob is still too young to join the Tournament of Power. After all, it won't be until the end of Dragon Ball Z, the time frame of the end of Dragon Ball Z, when Goku actually crosses paths with Oob. But it is nice that they still mention Oob and acknowledge his existence still. I did appreciate that. And that's right, I did mention before in a previous recap and thoughts video, there was a recent interview with Akira Toriyama where he mentioned that Android 17 became a park ranger after the events of the Cell Saga. Now, I did mention in that previous recap and thoughts video that there were some other details mentioned in that interview, and I would bring those up once we covered the recap and thoughts video that brought up those details. This is the episode that brings up those other details from that same interview. So in that same interview, Akira Toriyama had brought up that Android 17 met his wife sometime after he became a park ranger, and the two of them had 3 kids in total, 1 biological offspring and 2 adopted offspring. So yes, they brought up that detail from that interview in this episode. And like I said, it was nice to hear a bit of backstory for what Android 17 has been up to since the end of the Cell Saga. So, yeah, I do admit I'm still hopeful that maybe Dragon Ball Super, if it does continue eventually, or yes, I'm hoping that if the Dragon Ball franchise does continue on in the future, I'm hopeful that, with new content, yes, if the franchise continues with new content in the future, I'm hopeful that they will bring up Android 17 and Android 18's real names, Lapis and Lazul, for anyone who's curious, because so far their real names haven't been brought up in universe, or they haven't been mentioned on screen. For fans, that's more like supplementary material information. So it would be cool if they did if they did mention those names on screen for us. Now, some fans had wondered about how Android 17 recognized Goku's voice, even though he never met Goku before this episode, because back in the Buu saga, Android 17 also recognized Goku's voice, even though, he didn't meet Goku during the Buu saga. Now, some speculation that I have seen is that some fans figured that Dr. Gero probably had the androids listen to voice samples of Goku's voice so that they would recognize it, and I can definitely believe that. Also, though, in the manga, if you prefer, version of Goku and Android 17 crossing paths, they also offered another explanation. In the manga version, Android 17 comments that he recognized Goku's voice because he heard Goku's voice when he was inside of Cell during the events of the Cell game. So that's another explanation for anyone who was curious. Now, the other big detail is, yes, we see that even though Android 17 actually does know the stakes for losing the Tournament of Power, the universe being erased from existence, he still declines participating in the Tournament of Power. And I know that does seem quite surprising. You would think that your existence and the existence of many others being on the line would motivate them, but not in Android 17's case. Having said that, however, the opening theme song does show Android 17 along with several other characters from Universe 7. So, yes, for the sake of the dub-only viewers, it's still safe to say that Android 17 will join the Universe 7 team. For the sake of the dub viewers, it's just a matter of how Goku is going to convince Android 17 to join the Tournament of Power. And that ending involving alien poachers, yes, I think a dub-only viewer wouldn't be too far off if they speculated that the alien poachers helped to motivate Android 17. We'll talk about that more in greater detail in the recap and thoughts video for the next episode. But yes, Android 17's recruitment will be a two-parter, I believe. Yes, I think it's a two-parter. So we'll have to see how the recruitment unfolds in part 2 of the Android 17 recruitment. So otherwise, yes, there we go for this particular episode. Like I said, it was nice to see Android 17 again in a prevalent role, and it was pretty cool seeing Goku and Android 17 meet for the first time. I'm also glad that Chuck Huber is still playing Android 17. Chuck Huber was part of Chuck Huber was part of Chuck Huber was part of the Dragon Ball Super cast already because he returned to the role of Emperor Pilaf. So it was, oh, and Kibito too. So it makes sense that he would return for Android 17, but it's still nice to know that Chuck Huber is back in the role of Android 17. And like I said, we'll get to see more of I did like learning more about Android 17 after the events of the Cell Saga, and I do look forward to seeing more of his interactions with Goku in part 2 of the Recruit Android 17 two-parter. And we'll be sure, of course, to go into greater detail about that once we cover part 2. But for now, there we go. So as of this video, we've now discussed the Funimation dub of episode 86 of Dragon Ball Super on this channel. Take care, and until next time.